Hello there, Kelvin here. I hope you're doing okay. In my last video, I talked about things that go beyond the basics and fundamentals of front-end development. One thing I didn't mention though is web app performance. With front-end frameworks all over the place, there is a need for optimization of these JavaScript frameworks. So in this video, I will be talking about web app performance, why it's important, areas to look out for, and tools that you can use. Alright, let's jump into it. So there are various reasons why web app performance is important. The first one is user experience. Your users expect things to load instantly. So when a site takes too long to load, when users are clicking buttons and it's not responding, it affects the user experience. So you always want to optimize your site to make sure that it's running at optimal speed. It responds quickly, animations are moving as smooth as it can be. Retention rates. Once you improve your user experience, it is likely that a user will stay longer on your site and check out more things if it's responding quickly than if your site takes a lot of time to load. The next thing is conversion and sales. Once you've gotten the users onto your site and they are enjoying the user experience, it's easier to convince them to buy something, maybe a product or a service that you're selling. Another thing is the mobile experience. These days, most people would visit your web application, your website, on a mobile device, right? So you always want to make sure you optimize your site for mobile as well, not just in the sense that your site looks well on mobile, but it has to load well on mobile, because mobile devices tend to have fewer computing resources than desktop. So you have to optimize your site to make sure that it also loads quickly on mobile. There are some other reasons, but we can't exhaust all of them. These ones are just like the major reasons. SEO is also another thing. We know that Google adds this as a ranking factor. The quicker your site loads, the higher it will be on search results for similar sites. So these are some reasons why you have to optimize your site. There are a couple of things that affect website performance. The first one is page weight, the file size of everything that needs to load for your site to be functional. Whether that is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, images, videos, whatever a site needs to load contributes to the page weight. And you can imagine the higher the page weight, the longer it will take the site to load. So how do you optimize the page weight? One of the first things to think about is the above the fold content. This means everything that the user will first see on screen before any scrolling happens. So load only the things you need to show the above the fold content first, and then defer or asynchronously load everything under that at a later time. This could mean simplifying your pages to use lighter images or more text in some areas, minification of files, compressing these files to they take up less space. The main thing is reduce the initial payload and then asynchronously load the rest. The second thing that affects website performance is images. They convey more with less. So you see an image and you immediately have a picture that is painted in your mind. But images are a lot larger than text. Each image that you add to your site increases your page weight. So you have to think about the images that are on your site and ways to optimize them. The first thing you want to do is to use images when it makes sense. As much as they convey a lot of information, you shouldn't overuse them. The next thing you can do is resize images. Multiple types of devices would request for your website, and it makes sense to send only the size that is needed to be rendered. If your site is opened on a mobile device, there is no need to have a big resolution image that is now shrinked to the size of the mobile. If you can send a smaller sized image, then definitely you're sending less bytes to the device. That also improves the website speed. Another thing is lazy loading images. Earlier we talked about the above the full content. This also applies to images. So the images that are not immediately seen, you can defer the loading of those images until they are in view. So once the image is scrolled into view, then you can start loading the image. And lastly, compress images. There are a lot of tools, especially in today's front-end workflows, that optimize assets when you build your projects to be deployed for production. It's also recommended to use next-gen image formats like WebP or AVIF, and add support for older formats like PNG and JPG. These newer image formats are more optimized and take up less space. Next thing is render blocking CSS and JavaScript. So what does this mean? In your HTML file, you have the head tag, which is where you put things like meta tags, but it also contains your scripts and then your style sheets. Sometimes you need these style sheets to load, you need the scripts to load before the rest of the page itself loads. What you want to do is to eliminate the need as much as you can, as much as reasonably makes sense for your own website. Eliminate render blocking CSS, because what happens is that each time the browser is executing the HTML file, when it hits that point, it goes to fetch that script and receives the file from the server, and then continues execution. So each time it hits that, it pauses. So that pause also adds to your load time. So you want to eliminate as much of those blocking scripts as possible. Sometimes you can use the async attributes for these style sheets. If they are not necessary to render the page, you can load them asynchronously. This way, the browser sees that line, and while it's fetching it, it just continues with execution. The next step is reducing the amount of HTTP requests. So in previous points, we talked about eliminating render blocking CSS and JavaScript. But then if you have too many things for your site to load, then it just takes time, because each time it pauses to fetch those requests, it's just time that the user is waiting. As much as it can be a small file, as much as your server may be optimized to respond quickly, you need to reduce the amount of requests that needs to be made to fully render your site. A lot of these things I've talked about are front-end based, because this is where the web app performance a lot of the time is determined or is affected. But there are also things that you can do on the server side as well that can improve your performance. One of them is hosting. It's good to get a host that can optimize your files and zip them properly for faster delivery with either gzip or Brotli formats. Another thing is the geographic locations of your server. If your server is hosted in the US, the time it will take to load a file from India is not the same time that it will take to load the site from Nigeria, just because of distance. It makes sense to think about where your target audience is and try to host your site as close to that location as possible. That way you get even faster, maybe minimal, but every milliseconds or whatever it may be counts. Browser caching. Another thing you could do on server side is to send instructions from your server for caching some of these files on the browser. For example, images. When the browser fetches an image the first time, it would often cache that image. You can set the duration for which the browser can cache that image from the server. Obviously, you don't want to cache the image forever, but you cache it for as long as you know that image will be frequently updated. And yeah, these are some of the things that you can do to optimize your web app performance. But how do you know that your website even has a problem or could have some problems? There are tools for this. We have Lighthouse. Lighthouse is a tool that is now integrated into the Chrome browser, and it allows you to check on your website performance while you're developing the web app. Once your web app is developed, you can use Page Speed Insights. It also uses Lighthouse under the hood, but this way you can test your live site with Lighthouse. So this will now allow you to see how long the server takes to respond with the request. There are other tools like Pingdom, GTmetrix, Web Page Test, and more that allow you to check your website performance, and they give a report on the different aspects of your website, from the number of resources that your site is loading, to the render blocking resources, to optimizing images, and more. So that's all for this video. If you want me to go into a bit more of the technical aspects of how you can do some of this on your website, leave a comment down below. If you have enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.